Americans are richer and more generous than we are. That's what a wave of World Cup 2026 fans are saying after setting foot in America for the first time, after experiencing firsthand what they flatly call the American dream. It's not just one or two polite compliments, it's an entire wave of comments, an entire string of concrete examples, enough to make even the most skeptical person stop and think for a moment. That's exactly what a wave of videos and real comments spreading across social media over the past few weeks has been showing, clearly and decisively enough that it's hard to deny and hard to write off as just a passing online trend. In the middle of the 2026 World Cup taking place in America, a new wave of videos and comments has appeared, this time moving past food or hospitality and straight into a far more sensitive subject, money. One of the most representative videos is, "Americans are more rich and generous than us. FIFA World Cup 2026 fans experience the American dream," capturing the reactions of a group of international fans to the wealth and generosity they witnessed in America's everyday life. Around the same time, an Instagram reel is also spreading widely, capturing similar moments from World Cup fans experiencing America for the first time, and another YouTube video on the same theme is adding a whole set of other reactions from around the world. 3 different sources, 3 different camera angles, yet all telling the same story, enough to show this isn't some random one-off, but a trend spreading across the entire tournament. According to the Dispatch, this World Cup season alone has brought around 1.24 million international visitors to America, each spending more than $5,000 on average, enough to turn this wave of videos into a genuine viral phenomenon, not just a handful of scattered clips posted by a few small channels for fun, but a trend big enough that serious economic media has had to take notice. But it's arguably the comment sections under these videos, not the videos themselves, that most accurately reflect foreigners' perspective on America's wealth and generosity, because these are the words of people who experienced it directly, unedited, unfiltered by any media lens at all. Unlike previous viral waves that only revolved around food or scenery, this time people are getting into a far more delicate subject. Who's richer than whom? Who's more generous than whom? A topic people don't normally bring up on their own for fear of touching a nerve, and yet now it's visitors from all over the world who are the ones bringing it up first. Right after this, let's go through the most real reactions currently spreading under these videos, starting with the stories tied to the American dream. Kelly Carter, 8082, shared a fairly classic example. The CEO of Walmart started out as an associate at Walmart. That is the American dream come to life. The world's largest retail corporation, whose CEO once stocked shelves himself. A detail still repeated again and again as a benchmark, a measuring stick for anyone who wants to believe in the possibility of rising up from nothing, and also the reason why the phrase American dream still carries weight across generations instead of becoming an empty slogan, as many people suspect. Richard Harold 4357 took a more blunt view. America isn't easy. You have to actually work for it, and you need to understand life skills, household budgeting, and American social principles to be able to rise up, adding that America is a nation built on the rule of law, advising new citizens to read the Bill of Rights carefully to understand that God-given rights are non-negotiable, a perspective that doesn't sugarcoat anything, nor does it talk the country down, simply laying out what's worth knowing before committing to a country long-term. Scott M7341 remarked that tourists can't stop praising America, the food, the people, the scenery, even how safe they feel, and that every passing day proves further that media worldwide has been getting America wrong for a long time, an observation not unique to him but being echoed by plenty of other travelers under different videos throughout this same season. These 3 comments, on closer look, represent 3 different kinds of people, one telling a concrete success story, one seriously analysing life principles, and one observing the overall trend of public opinion, and yet all 3 land on the exact same point that America deserves the title of dream, not just as a hollow marketing slogan. What's notable is that none of these comments came from some organised America fan club. They came from completely random accounts, under different videos with no coordination whatsoever, and yet they all landed on almost the exact same wave of excitement, something that rarely happens with any other topic that tends to spark debate on social media. Beyond individual success stories, plenty of people also brought up concrete numbers, striking enough to make listeners do a double take about the sheer scale of America's wealth. GLC 61 offered a fairly jarring comparison. The UK, no offense intended, has a smaller economy than the worst performing US state, Mississippi, ranked 50th out of 50 states, a fact that made more than a few people rethink the entire wealth scale they've been using, since Mississippi is usually cited as America's poorest state, and yet it still outweighs an entire national economy like the UK's. Queen RZ1, who took a different angle. Americans are so spoiled that they don't realize how lucky they are not to live in a country under a socialist model, a truth that people living it every day, precisely because they're so used to it, usually only notice once someone from outside steps in and points it out to them directly. But perhaps the most vivid example of both wealth and generosity is the story of Freddie, a German football fan mentioned by the Dispatch. He became an online phenomenon through his journey exploring America and received countless completely voluntary acts of help from professional sports teams, hotels, airlines, famous athletes, all the way to a sitting state governor who offered to help him make it to Germany's match in Toronto after his flight got cancelled. Freddie's story didn't come from any organised PR campaign at all. Everything just naturally followed one after another. A hotel heard about him and offered him a free stay. An airline saw that and helped with a ticket. A sports team found him endearing and invited him to a VIP match. And then, when his flight got cancelled, even a governor's office proactively reached out to see how they could help. A domino chain of kindness that no one involved could have predicted from the start, and perhaps it's exactly because it was so spontaneous that it became so convincing, since if it had been scripted or staged, it could never have flowed so smoothly or moved people so much. Freddie's story then spread across social media, not because he did anything special, but simply because he documented exactly what was happening to him. And it was precisely that authenticity that made millions of followers feel connected to him. Alongside the wealth, plenty of people also devoted entire comments to something else, something with far less to do with money: the selfless generosity of ordinary Americans. Roman Westbrook offered a fairly insightful observation. Americans are friendly because they genuinely don't want anything from you, which sounds funny, but is actually rare in the world. They aren't envious, and plenty of them will sincerely root for total strangers. Someone who doesn't know you at all, who has nothing to gain from you, and yet is still willing to stop, check in on you, help you, even cheer for your country's team right on their own home turf. Street 1111 shared an everyday detail. In an ordinary conversation in America, people tend to only ask about your kids, your dog, or how your day's been, rather than bringing up politics, a detail that reflects a part of the communication culture many international visitors aren't used to. In a lot of other places, politics and current events tend to seep into every casual conversation, whereas here, people tend to reserve conversational space for lighter, more personal things. Manchandadus proudly noted that hosting the World Cup in the same year as the 250th anniversary of the founding of the nation was a masterstroke, with America now at the center of the football world, and every guest, even those who couldn't make it, getting to witness the biggest fireworks display of all time, as if some grand script had been laid out in advance. Except this time, nobody had to write the script at all. Everything just coincided spectacularly between the 250th anniversary and the biggest sporting event on the planet. Notably, Nabila Hem 2K added a detail that keeps the story from being confined to Europe alone. Not just Europeans, but teams and fans from every continent share the same feeling, and Leah with it immediately agreed, confirming that was exactly what she meant to say. This detail keeps the story from being confined to one curious European audience, turning it instead into a shared phenomenon for anyone, from anywhere, encountering America's everyday life directly for the first time. Even more interesting, right before this wave of videos broke out, leading economists, including Nobel laureate Paul Krugman, had been engaged in a fairly heated online debate over whether American living standards were really pulling ahead of Europe's, a debate centered on how to measure real purchasing power between the two, with a flood of charts and per capita GDP figures being picked apart, each side using a different calculation method, and naturally each method producing a different conclusion. Exactly the kind of academic debate only people in the field have the patience to follow to the end. Notably, the people involved themselves admitted that the most reliable way to check would, in the end, be to simply go out and look at reality in both places with their own eyes, a test that seemed like just a throwaway line, and yet was literally put to the test just days later, because just days after The Economist was still debating on paper, thousands of World Cup visitors from Europe, Japan, and elsewhere went ahead and ran that exact real-world test themselves simply by traveling around America and observing with their own eyes, and the result was close to an outright win for America's side. What's worth noting is that, taken together, none of these comments assign blame or praise based on any specific party or policy. What they keep pointing to are very concrete personal experiences: a store packed with goods, a conversation free of politics, help given for no particular reason. Maybe the issue isn't really about who's right between economic theory and real experience, but about how people usually only truly believe something once they've witnessed it themselves, no matter how much complex academic debate came before it. The wealth here, in the end, isn't the flashy kind you see in supercars or mansions, but sits right inside the most ordinary parts of daily life. A retail store stocked full year-round, a filling meal at a reasonable price, a gas station open 24 hours, things that Americans themselves, from sheer familiarity, have long since forgotten are a privilege not every place in the world gets to have. That's exactly why the story of America's wealth, when told through the lens of foreign visitors, ends up more persuasive than any official economic ranking. Money can be measured in charts, in growth percentages, but a state governor spending his time helping a foreign football fan catch his flight, or a stranger stopping to ask about your dog instead of asking what you think about politics, is something no economic chart can ever measure. And perhaps that's exactly why this kind of content spreads so fast and strikes such a chord with audiences back home. Not because it's showing off, but because it reminds people of things that have become so obvious that no one bothers to notice them anymore. Above are just some of the real stories and comments from World Cup fans who directly experienced America's wealth and generosity. Maybe sometimes even the most complex numbers and economic theories aren't as convincing as seeing it with your own eyes just once, and maybe Americans themselves need that kind of reminder too, to realize that what they have, from everyday abundance to the way they treat strangers kindly, isn't something every place in the world gets to have, and certainly isn't something that exists naturally, without ordinary people quietly maintaining it every single day. And if anyone out there has ever doubted this, ever assumed these compliments were just a passing exaggeration of World Cup season, then maybe the simplest answer is invite them here once and let their own eyes and experience speak for themselves, exactly the way thousands of visitors just did. So, what about you? What is it about America's wealth or generosity that makes you feel the most proud? Leave a comment down below and let's talk about it together. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.